This is wonderful. This is bonkers. This is crazy. But it will really give you something to think about. Please share with others. And what I'm going to talk about today is my photographs of the moon. My video last month was the first time I'd taken photographs of the moon using my P1000 camera, and this is another photograph. However, this time round it's full moon again 1 month later on the 6th and 7th of October 2025. But wait, hold on a minute, think about this. I am saying I can take photographs with my camera, and you can take photographs with your latest iPhone, etc., with great clarity, and they are better than a lot of the images dished out by NASA, who get almost £80 million a day. Well, that should really give you something to think about. But hold on, that's not all. They don't want you to think about the distances they teach you. Let me put it like this. The United States Atlantic coast to the Pacific coast is approximately 2,800 miles. Think you could take a picture that distance with your telephone and you call me crazy? But maybe you will wake up to just how wild this is. How about 10 United States next to each other? Well, that's about 28,000 miles. See how nuts this is yet? But if the moon were 250,000 miles away, that would be almost 100 United States side by side. And you're taking clear pictures on a phone? This is bonkers. If you think the pictures are taken from 250,000 miles away, 100 United States, then who is the one who is crazy? Well, that should really give you something to think about. With all that said, here is my first video of the moon moving across the face of the camera. It is at double speed, but I think it is amazing to see this with your own eyes. Again, this is taken on the 6th of October, and there is a relatively clear sky on occasions, but the sky down here in my garden in Kent, England, still has that thin, milky white layer at high altitude that covers the sky. But look how bright the surface is. So this leads us on to something else to think about. We are told that the moon reflects sunlight. But hold on, we're also taught that the sun is 93 million miles away. So think of a high intensity torch pointing directly and close to a wall. You get something like this, a very bright localized reflected light. But if you move the torch away from this wall, look what happens. The light is no longer intensely localized, but spreads out and diffuses, making the light dimmer. This demonstrates the physical law of light in that doubling the distance reduces the light intensity by a quarter. Basically, the further the light source, the more brightness reduces. And the light is radiating in all directions, not just an intense beam pointed towards the Earth and Moon. We are told that the moon reflects sunlight. But hold on, we're also taught that the sun is 93 million miles away. So think about how much energy the sun would need to illuminate the moon. Because unlike the sun just shining on the Earth, this energy must first illuminate the rocky moon surface to such an extent that the surface can reflect that light through our atmosphere to reach us. And at the same time, this reflected light must be subject to loss of intensity with distance. So this too should give you something to think about. Oh, and if you really believe that something like this can be illuminated from a light source 93 million miles away, then in turn reflect it down to Earth so that it is very bright at night, perhaps then you should be nominated for the Crazy Gang. At least this should give you something else to think about and perhaps even examine what you have been taught. So moving on, let's discuss craters on the moon and rocks, asteroids and meteors moving through space. This is a photograph I took in early October. And note I use the word photograph, not image, as used by NASA, which is another thing for you to think about. However, I want you to turn your attention to the craters. Now I wonder if you've noticed anything in particular about the shape of the craters. Here is another photograph, this time of the top right-hand corner. I am amazed at how detailed it is. But again, look at the craters. They all seem to be of the same general shape. Have you got it yet? OK, hands up all those that said they appeared to be circular. Well done. So now, they are all circular, so this should now give you something else to think about. OK, let's see what science has to say about the impact process. A high-speed impact releases immense kinetic energy, pulverising and vaporising the lunar surface in an explosive event. The formation of an impact crater occurs in 3 main stages. The impactor, in other words the asteroid or meteor, travelling at tens of thousands of kilometres per hour, hits the moon's surface and compresses the rock. Shock waves spread out from the point of impact, transferring the object's kinetic energy into the lunar material in a fraction of a second. Now, the powerful shock wave produces a deep, bowl-shaped cavity, much larger, I think it means much larger than the original projectile, though I think they probably had much larger in writing this. No one's actually ever seen this process happening. Vaporised and molten rock, along with pulverised solid material known as ejecta, well, that sounds logical, are blasted out in all directions. This ejecta settles around the crater, often forming bright streaks called rays. Well, if it's going in all directions, it wouldn't produce streaks, it would be all around. Anyway, once the explosive excavation is complete, gravity reshapes the crater. Well, that's quite convenient. Smaller craters typically retain a simple bowl-like shape. Larger, more complex craters experience wall collapse, where rocks slump downwards to create step-like terraces. If the impact is powerful enough, the central floor of the crater may rebound, creating a central peak. The very largest impacts, called impact basins, can form multiple rings of peaks. Well, I'm sure we've all seen that happen. Oh, and here we go then. The Moon and Earth have experienced similar rates of bombardment, but the Moon's surface provides a far more complete and ancient record of these impacts. So now it's time to get our thinking caps on. There are 2 main things wrong with this. Science is reproducible. Scientism is imagination that seems reasonable but is never seen reproduced except in textbooks and to pass exams. So they try everything to get around this. The first is that round craters require the rocky object to descend vertically to the surface. Ooh, you can see this. Think about it. The more the parallel angle to the surface, the more furrow or trench will be produced when the object hits the ground, particularly at these speeds. But we see no furrows or trenches. In fact, when trying to find any information, it is clear that scientists do not want you to ask these questions. Now, how do kids learn about moon craters? Look up this JPL NASA student project on making a moon crater in the classroom. But look how you prepare for impact. It says, simulate impacting the moon by holding a small rock above your head. So, vertically in other words, and dropping it into a cake pan. Right. It only gives you a clean circular crater when you drop the object vertically, just like we see on the moon. There is a distinct lack of trenches where an asteroid or meteor would have hit at an angle. Hollywood loves to give you movies about space objects hitting the Earth, but look, don't you see it now? They are all at an angle, illustrated particularly well in the film Meteor. You can't tell me that every space object hitting over the moon's surface over time has come in vertically. But second, And think about this. All these craters I'm showing you directly face the Earth and always have done. So where have these asteroids and space debris come from? Simply put, the Earth is blocking the path. This leads to all kind of wonderful ideas and theories, which is pure scientism. So we can take long-distance photos of the moon with clarity, even at 100 times the width of the United States. I can even do this with my modern telephone. These photographs are better than a lot of NASA's being paid nearly 80 million a day. The moon is so bright, but sunlight reduces dramatically with distance. The cold rock of the moon cannot reflect so brightly, and moonlight is colder than sunlight. Craters appear to have been formed from vertically hitting objects. There are no trenches or furrows, and the Earth will stop asteroids from hitting the moon vertically, which always has its same face turned towards the Earth. And that, my friends, should really give you something to think about.